Hello, Joy here. I'm working on a sock and I am using short row heels for this sock. So I'm going to show you how I do my short row heels. I use a method that I learned from Arne and Carlos. Whenever I make socks toe up, I will do a short row toe and a short row heel. So here you can see I already have my short row toe done. This is what it looks like. And I'm about to start my short row heel, which is done in exactly the same way as I did the toe. I have tried many different short row techniques for the heels of socks, and I've decided that I like Arne's the best. That is the one that I use most frequently, if not all the time now, and I'm going to show you how I do it. Now I have 72 stitches on this sock. It's a big sock because it's for my husband. Normally you would put half of the stitches on one needle for your heel, which in my case would be 36. However, one of the complaints about short row heels is that they are tight along this diagonal from the back of the heel to the top of the foot. So what I have done is I've added 2 extra stitches onto the short rows. So instead of 36, I have 38 to make that short row section a little bit deeper. All right, so I finished my round and I've distributed my stitches. So I have 38 stitches on one needle to work my short rows, and then I've divided the rest of the stitches on the other 2 needles for the time being. And I am using, as you can see, a contrast color. I'm going to do that on the heel as well. So I'm going to pick up my contrast color and I'm going to work the first row straight across. However, one thing I am going to do is I'm going to weave in my working yarn tail as I go so that it is available for me on the other end when I'm done the heel and I'm ready to start working in the round again. So I will start that here and work across. Just knit one row straight. And I feel like, as is the case with the first row of anything, it is always a little bit awkward getting started. All right, here I am approaching the end of my first row. Okay. So that's my first short row, because instead of continuing on around, I'm going to turn and work back. Now I'm going to work back till I have 1 stitch left on the needle, and I'm not going to work that very last stitch. I'm going to slip the first stitch and purl to 1 before the end. Okay, I'm almost to the end. I'm going to purl until I have 1 stitch left. Now I'm going to turn. I'm not going to do anything at this point. I am simply going to turn, slip the next stitch, and then work until I have 1 stitch left at this end. So when Arne works his short row heels, on the first pass, as you're going from many stitches to few stitches, you don't do anything when you turn. You just simply turn and then work the next row. Okay, here I am approaching this end. I'm going to work until I have 1 stitch left. Turn. Slip this first stitch and purl back. Now I'm going to purl until I have 2 stitches left at the end of the row. Okay, here I am at the end of the row. Now I have 2 stitches left on my left needle. I'm going to turn and work back, slip the first stitch and knit back until I have 2 stitches left at the end of the row. Okay, here I am at the end of the row. Going to knit until I have 2 stitches left, turn, okay, and repeat. Slip the first stitch and then purl back, this time until I have 3 stitches left. And I'm going to continue doing this back and forth, turning, slip the first stitch, knit or purl, decreasing or increasing, so to speak, decreasing the number of stitches in the middle and increasing the number of stitches left unworked until I get to the desired amount for my heel. Okay, I'm back. Now I finished the first half of my short row heel. In my case, I'm working with 13 stitches unleft on the right and 13 stitches unworked on the left, and then in the center I have 12 stitches that are worked. Now that I have gone down to my center 12 stitches, now it's time to start coming back up and picking up these stitches that were unworked to finish the second half of the short row heel. I'm halfway through this first row, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to work up to the last worked stitch. So here I come. If I were still going down, I would be turning and not working this. But now that I'm going back up, I want to close this gap between these 2 stitches. And I'm going to do that by purling these 2 stitches together. And then to make up for the stitch that I lost, I am going to do a lifted increase in the stitch below and purl that. Now I'm going to turn and work across to the other side. Again, I'm going to slip the first stitch and work to 1 stitch before the end of the worked stitches, and I'm going to join that with the first stitch of the unworked stitches. This is the last stitch. I'm going to join it with the next stitch. I'm on the knit side, so I'm going to knit these 2 together. And then to make up for the stitch that I lost, I'm going to do a lifted increase by knitting into the stitch below. Okay, now I'm going to purl back and do the same thing. So slip 1, purl back. Okay, here I am 1 stitch before the gap. I'm going to purl these 2 together. And then I'm going to do a lifted increase in the stitch below. Purl, turn, slip the first stitch, knit back to 1 stitch before the gap. Okay, here I am 1 stitch before the gap. I'm going to knit these 2 stitches together and do a lifted increase in the stitch below. Turn, slip 1, purl back. So I'm going to repeat this process until I have all of my stitches back on the working needle. Okay, I've closed all my gaps on the short rows. I'm on the very last one. I'm almost to the end here. Okay, so for this last one, I'm going to knit 2 together, draw up a leg from the stitch below and make a new stitch. And there I have finished my short rows. That's what it looks like on the side. I really like these short rows for a number of reasons. One is they're very tidy. There's no gaps or holes that you can see. Unlike if you do wrap and turn, you end up with double wraps, so there's not as much bulk on the inside. In fact, there's no bulk to speak of at all on the inside. I like the way it looks and I like the way it fits. It's a very nice short row method. So now that I've finished, I can cut my yarn here. Since I'm working with a contrast color. And I have my working yarn over here ready to go. And just as an aside, an added bonus of using the contrast color gives you a tail at both ends here, so that if you do end up with any holes or any little mistakes that you want to fix, you have a little bit of extra yarn built in that you can do that with. So now I'll just start around with my main color and work a couple rows. I'll show you what it looks like after a couple of rows are worked. All right, here I've worked a couple of rows past the short row, so you can see kind of what it looks like going on here. See if I can get a close-up. And then here's the other side. And then there's the short row on the toe. So now I just have to work up the cuff on the top of the foot. That'll be that for that sock. I will put a link in the description box to the YouTube video where Arne describes how to do this, so you can watch him do it as well and maybe give it a try yourself. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.